Our TEDx talk is about exploration. I'm thrilled to be with you today, and I want to have a conversation about a topic that I'm really passionate about. I've spent decades studying this, I've failed a lot, and I've also learned from some of the world's best on this topic, and I want to enter into a dialogue. Now, you're going to hear from some superb speakers that are going to discuss a range of topics from emotions in the workplace to the power of resilience. I want to talk about something a little bit different, something a little bit vague, something a little bit uncomfortable. But before I do, let me step back and let you know that I have the pleasure of interacting with 1,000 young adults a year and an equal number of Generation Xers and even baby boomers. And the sentiments are the same. You've heard them. Anxiety, uncertainty, confusion, hesitation. I think it's time we go deep on this, and let's peel and find out what's behind this. Take a moment now and listen and feel the following. I know it's a serious topic. Let's embellish it a little bit more through the use of some great stories.
I feel uncertain in what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And figuring out how I spend my time and what I want my life to look like, I begin to wonder, am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? Am I on the right path? Am I on the wrong path? And I just can't seem to figure that one out. And I wish it was clear what the next steps were.
Why is this happening to me right now? Nothing is going right in my life. My parents are fighting. I'm in a toxic relationship. I'm getting kicked out of school, and it doesn't seem to stop. The list of sufferings just keeps going on and on. Am I ever going to be able to escape this, ever?
There I was, standing in front of the waitstaff at a local restaurant, asking for the key to the restroom. She paused, gave me this up and down, looked at both keys, and we both realized in that moment she didn't know which one to give me. It's awkward. It's airports, gas stations, bars, my office, really anywhere there's a public restroom. What may be a routine activity for all of you is this anxiety-ridden roller coaster for me.
Recently, I made a very important personal decision that really moved the needle into the uncertainty zone. In addition to all the other things I already had on my plate, I'm a single parent, full-time student, full-time employee. I recently lost my father, so self-doubt really started to crawl up along with high anxiety and stress. And I thought I was going to break down. I didn't know if I could stay positive for my son.
Airports, offices, hotels, meetings, dinners. Leave on a Monday, back on a Friday, sometimes even at the weekend. This was the life that I was living as a senior vice president of a Fortune 50 company. I was good at it, I enjoyed it, I was comfortable, my job was predictable, right up until the point that I decided to become an entrepreneur.
Does anyone need a hug after watching that? Listen, I promise you it's not all doom and gloom today. But first we got to get our head and our heart into this topic. There's a common thread among those stories. I'm not going to say it's going to be confusion, anxiety, hesitation. There's something deeper going on. There's a root cause we're not talking about. And let's talk about it now. I believe the root cause is one word: ambiguity. And more specifically, your ability to manage ambiguity or not. That can make all the difference. Now listen, it's not just at the individual level. In our world today, ambiguity is everywhere and is abhorred. Markets crash when there's ambiguity. Parents struggle coaching their kids in an ambiguous situation. Just take the last year. And finally, new career individuals launching into the world, trying to figure out where to go, what to do, what industry to take, and what job to glean. Ambiguous situations all around. Let's define what we're talking about with ambiguity. What do we do oftentimes? We go to Webster's. So let's go to Webster's. I'm going to pull this up on my phone. You have it up on the screen. Let's see if Webster's can help us out with ambiguity. All right, definition number one: the quality or state of being ambiguous, especially in meaning. Well, that's not helpful. Number two: a word or expression that can be understood in two or more ways, an ambiguous word or expression. Still not helpful. By the way, I thought you couldn't define the term in the definition that you're using. Never mind. Number three: uncertainty. Okay, Webster's not much help. But you know what ambiguity is. You can feel it. It's this amorphous, blurry experience in which what we want, more than anything, is clarity. Let's take a look at 3 real-life examples that are full of ambiguity and not necessarily a lot of clarity. Hey babe, how's it going? Last night was dope. Yeah, not gonna lie. Want to hang this weekend? Hello? Are you there? Are you ghosting me? What's the turnaround time on a text or a Snapchat? Is it 5 minutes and is it 5 hours? And who knows the difference? Ambiguity. But it's not just the modern dating world. If you back up and look, this next generation coming up, which I think has the potential to be one of the best if they can manage ambiguity, want all 3, what I call the trifecta: financial security through a budding career, make the planet a better place to live, and at the same time, while you're doing that, design the lifestyle that you want. Talk about an ambiguous situation. How do you manage that trifecta? Lastly, let's talk about jobs, an area passionate for me as well. 55% of undergraduates in this country, unfortunately, have the potential of being under or unemployed 1 year after graduation from a university. How do you avoid being a statistic on a government chart? The common thread among these 3 use cases, I know you see it now, it's ambiguity. And there's a profound lack of clarity of what to expect, what steps to take, and how to manage ambiguity in those situations. We're going to offer you a partial antidote today and make it real through the use of some more compelling real stories. But first, I want to share another passion of mine. Cue it, Andrew. Nice toss, buddy. Naomi Osaka, one of the world's greatest tennis players. Amazing. She also has an amazing quote. Always being on the move doesn't always mean you're moving your life in the right positive direction. I couldn't agree more, Naomi. Staying in ambiguity, tolerating it, good things will come. And now let's apply ambiguity to something we're all passionate about, our livelihood or jobs. Employers, what do employers do? They have a job posting, 1,000 people apply for it, and they have 10 competencies that you've got to match. And they filter out 998 people that don't match those competencies. Now, wait a minute, does that make sense to you? Are there individuals that applied that potentially with talent and the right coaching could do the job? Job search platforms, I'm not going to name them, but you know who they are. They tout that they're the #1 place to find a job. Yet 73% of employers maintain it's really hard to find the right candidate using those platforms. Instead, let's flip this, and I'm going to ask you a hard question. Would you consider, as an employer, would you consider hiring on promise and talent? Would you consider, as a job seeker, spending 80% of your time building relationships and networking and only 20% online? That's uncomfortable, isn't it? Ambiguous, but can make all the difference. What have we done so far? We've had a good discussion about ambiguity. You've heard some sentiments that were compelling, some statistics that may be thought-provoking. And I can hear you. I hear it. Cyrus, now what? What do we do about this? Now let's talk about this partial antidote. We can manage ambiguity more effectively in these 3 steps. I'm going to want you to define it, tolerate it, and action it. Let's take each one of these one by one. To define ambiguity, set the context. Now, the context could be people, process, environment. We can't give you a full checklist because it depends. Go to the next step, tolerate. This is a hard one. By tolerating the ambiguity, you're going to be in a better position to seek clarity. I want you to, as one colleague says, stay in it. Suffer a little bit of ambiguity. Good things will come in the long run. And then finally, do what you do best. Action it. Oh, I've seen your Excel spreadsheets and your to-do list. You're amazing at it, which is why the size of the circle is the biggest of all 3. And let me tell you what I think of that. There's a better way. And now let me show you a better way. Could you spend 80% of your time in defining it and tolerating it, and only 20% of your time in actioning it? Feels uncomfortable, but I assure you it can make all the difference. Now let's get out of academics, take this partial antidote, and apply it to the 3 use cases we talked about before. First, the modern world of dating. Apparently, there is going to be a framework for dating, and we have at the bottom rung, hanging out. That's actually a term. Then there could be talking, which ironically doesn't involve talking, but actually texting or Snapchatting, but never mind, that's another time. And then we have being a thing, not the movie, that's a term. And then finally, dating, which could be the equivalent of actual marriage. But notice, we have defined the world of dating. We have tolerated the ambiguity of response time, because now what we're going to say is the higher up you go in intimacy on this triangle, the faster the response time should be in text or Snapchat or any other social media device. See what we did there? We just reduced ambiguity using the model. Let's define a period of your time in which you choose one of those goals. Tolerate the ambiguity of not dealing with the other two, and in time, you can have impact of all three. Because you can have it all. You just can't have it all at once. Finally, with career management, if you are in mid-career, would you consider tolerating moving to a new industry you've never been in because you have transferable skills? If you're up and coming, would you apply for a job that wasn't your major? Again, can you define and tolerate the ambiguity because it might lead to something powerful? Now let's check back with our special guests on how they've managed the partial antidote to arrive at something pretty profound.
I need to define what it is that I'm looking for. I want a purpose-driven job, and I want to be able to significantly impact the world around me for the better. I ask myself, who does this work now? What does that work look like? Who do I know, and who do they know? And once I've answered these, I've defined where I'm at. I can do this.
Since we can't escape ambiguity, we have to learn how to tolerate it. To tolerate means to accept or endure. How do you do this? By having hope. Hope is what got me from rock bottom, and it'll get you out of rock bottom too.
My authenticity invites ambiguity, period. It means always assessing the situation. Do I think this person is ready to engage in meaningful conversation? In those scenarios, I'm going to tolerate it so it doesn't exacerbate. In other instances, I do think there's an opportunity to take action and educate in the moment. Ambiguity doesn't always have to come from a point of malice. And if we're able to kind of meet people where they're at, we can create some meaningful change.
There was no clarity. Everything was so ambiguous. Did I make the right decision? What am I going to do when my son goes to college? I had all these questions and no answers. So I decided to just pause and stay the course. I have to keep going, and I'm going to get my MBA and watch all of this pay off.
As an entrepreneur, I replaced structure and predictability with ambiguity, of learning new things like sales and marketing, of doing things myself instead of delegating. But did I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Was I too old? Was I too rigid? It was humbling. I dealt with this ambiguity by getting myself a business partner, my son Charlie. I surrounded myself with people who wanted to be on the same journey as me, and I sought partnerships from other entrepreneurs. Now I feel I have what it takes to be a great entrepreneur, and I love it.
My friends, we've covered a lot of ground today. It's been my privilege to be part of this TEDx. There's one last piece of this conversation that's missing, and this one's gonna hurt. I'm gonna need you, when you're dealing with profound ambiguity in your life, wait for it, to close the lid. I want you to power off the phone. I know, right? And here's why. I implore you to engage in human self-contemplation. Whatever that looks like for you. Some of you journal, some of you take walks, some of you meditate. True human self-contemplation is going to give you this big picture. And speaking of big picture, let me close with a quick story. Another passion of mine, cue it, Andrew, is this game called soccer. And many parents and coaches are familiar with this phenomenon called bunch ball. It's when wonderful, beautiful little kids are around the ball and they're all bunching and they won't pass. No, you first. No, me first. No, it drives coaches crazy. It drives parents even crazier. After one particularly bad bunch ball Saturday, I took my kids, yay high, to a local yogurt shop, met this beautiful individual that happened to be on the Olympic soccer team. And he said, "Oh, I know how to solve bunch ball." A flurry of customers came in. 5 minutes, I'm waiting. 10 minutes, I'm waiting. The kids are starting to scream. Yogurt's melting. I'm like, we're not leaving until I get this bunch ball answer. I'll never forget the moment in which this beautiful individual kneeled down to my kids and looked both at them and said, "The cure to solving bunch ball is chin up. Only by having your chin up can you see the lanes of passing in this beautiful game. Only having your chin up will you be able to see ambiguity now, not as an enemy, but as something to be invited. You got this. Now let's start a conversation."